Hey, Guy. What's up, Guy? Guy here. Glad you're here. Live on YouTube Thursday morning, or not live, however you're consuming it. There's a podcast down in the description below. Check that out on the podcast feed. You can check the description for the YouTube to watch everything you hear. Well, we're almost to the end of the week, and it's been a day-to-day onslaught of Brandon Aiyuk guessing. And I'm ready to make a prediction about what is going to happen, not what isn't going to happen as it relates to Brandon Aiyuk. For the last several days, we've talked about whether or not he'll be traded. You know that my prediction on that is no. So how much are they going to pay him? If Deontay Johnson's worth $19 million a year and DK Metcalf, who catches less balls than me, I'm now Aiyuk, and throws a fit a month, is worth more, then what am I worth? Now, Brandon Aiyuk does throw fits, but he does it in his wardrobe. Don't even bring up Cooper Kupp to me, all right? He had 145 catches 3 years ago. Now he's about to be 31, not healthy, and he got $75 million. Do you know how many catches I'd have for Sean McVay? And Debo, that's my guy, but I catch more balls than him. But he carries the ball. Okay, true. But I still have more yards than him, more touchdowns than him, play more games than him. In fact, I've missed like one game since Kyle Shanahan let me out of his doghouse. You never have to tell me to get in shape. If you just took half of my blocks and made them targets, I'd lead the league in catches. I'm a blocking machine. Debo got $58 million guaranteed. That was 2 years ago. The cap was $208 million then. My guy, the cap's about to be $250 million. So I, Brandon Aiyuk, am prepared to accept $65 to $70 million. Hell, I'm the closest thing you've had to a true number one receiver since Terrell Owens. You've been trying to replace that dude longer than the San Francisco Giants have been trying to replace Barry Bonds. And nobody's been trying to replace anything longer than the Giants have been trying to replace Barry Bonds. In fact, they've had 17 straight years with a different opening day left fielder. The longest stretch for a different opening day starter at any position in all of Major League Baseball. I'm your guy. What are we waiting around for? Well, I'll tell you. Another year. My prediction is this. Brandon Aiyuk this year will make 600% more than he made last year. Now, if you're doing the math, last year he made $2 million. 600% more than $2 million is $14 million. Specifically, $14,124,000. My prediction is that Brandon Aiyuk will play on the fifth-year option. And I think he knows it. Here's my percentages. I think there's a 75% chance that Brandon Aiyuk plays on his fifth-year option. I think there's a 17% chance they extend him. I think there's an 8% chance they trade him. They don't want to trade him. They also don't want to extend him. They have him under contract. And they're trying to win it all again this year. Why did two people around Brandon Aiyuk right after the Super Bowl say that it was time to say goodbye? Was it because they just had such a great relationship with the community? They wanted to give everybody a heads up and bid a proper farewell, not into the Irish goodbye thing? No, that's not why. It's because they know. I think he already knows. I think it's unlikely that he's going to get this year what he wants. 50 Cent once rapped that he was patiently waiting to blow. I think Brandon Aiyuk's people are impatiently waiting to go. And I don't think he's going anywhere. I think they want him to play on the fifth-year option this year. I think he's going to hold out. I think unlike Debo, unlike Kittle, he's not going to get the contract. Unlike McGlinchey, he will play on his fifth-year option, and then he will get the contract. I still think he's the most likely guy of all their skill guys to still be on the team 5 years from now. But it'll get a little bit hairy next year. When he's a free agent, they could tag him. But I think that's where we're headed. Now, I love watching a good press conference, especially a John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan press conference. I love watching it live, but what I really love is going back later and watching it again. So let's go back and watch John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. First press conference after the Super Bowl. Asked a couple times about free agents. And remember earlier, Kyle was asked, the Buckner thing, you had to trade Buckner. And he said, no, we didn't have to do that. We could have kept him. We just made some decisions. I think the Niners are probably understandably scarred isn't the word, but even though they got Brandon Aiyuk in that trade, or it helped them get Brandon Aiyuk when they drafted Javon Kinlaw after the Buckner trade, I think that might make them a little less likely to trade Brandon Aiyuk. I think the fact they did it with Buckner isn't evidence that they would do it with Aiyuk. I think it's actually a warning that they won't. But let's go back to John Lynch. And he gets asked a question here last week. And the question is extending Brandon Aiyuk a priority for you? Listen to the first thing he says.
Brandon Aiyuk this offseason, and is extending him a top priority for you?
Yeah, you have to prioritize all these things. Brandon's entering his fifth-year option. Brandon's been a fantastic player for us. Kyle calls him a warrior all the time because of the way he goes out and competes, and that shines through anybody who, whether you're a trained eye or whether you're a fan, you can see the passion he plays with. You can see the production that he's had. We're extremely, prideful in what he's become, and he should be as well. And so, your team is comprised of guys, veterans who've been paid very well, of guys who want to be played very well. We got one guy on our team who, is pretty prominent, who can't be played very, real well right now because the CBA doesn't allow. So it's all one big puzzle. We've developed a good cadence over the years, Kyle and I, where he focuses on the season. We do all the planning, and then we present things to him, and we work through it.
All right, I'm just going to play the beginning again real quick.
A top priority for you?
Yeah, you have to prioritize all these things. Brandon's entering his fifth-year option.
So that could be one of two things. That could be John Lynch not wanting to give a direct answer to this question because nobody ever does in this spot. You don't tell everybody what you're about to do. You don't know yet exactly what you're about to do. Maybe there is a scenario where you trade him. Maybe there is a scenario where you extend him. Maybe there's a scenario where he shows up and plays on his fifth-year option. All those doors are still open to the 49ers. None of this is guaranteed, even for them. As he said, we're just getting Kyle Shanahan into these discussions. But I also think that might have been a hint as to what his first thought is on Brandon Aiyuk. He was asked later more about some of the offseason planning, and this is what he said that time in the press conference.
To keep all the major high-priced players this time around?
Yeah, there's some challenges, Eric. I hope so. I think we're set up to do that. It takes...
I think we're set up to do that. So there is a path in his mind, and John Lynch is a smart guy. He's done this before. He's got Parag with him. He's done this before. He's got Kyle with him. He's got a head coach that has agreed to trade a star player coming off a Super Bowl before. But in his mind, there is a path to keep all these guys. And, other people earlier in the week, Graziano gave one. You get this guy to take some salary cut. You take this guy to restructure. You take this guy to restructure, right? Maybe that's what he's thinking. But there is a path to keeping everybody. And he already told us the first thing he thinks of when it comes to Brandon Aiyuk is his fifth-year option, because that's the first thing he said. But let's continue here with John Lynch trying to keep a team together.
It takes putting the whole thing together, and there's also things we have to plan for, going forward. So you can't just be reckless. We never will be. It goes back to the draft being so critical because those guys, making and contributing to your team are very critical. But it goes back to the whole piece. So it's early. We've been obviously looking and planning for these things. Now we get to include Kyle and his staff on those talks, and we'll have a great plan moving forward.
All right. So there's two comments from John Lynch on the subject, and then you wonder, what does it look like after next year? What do you do, right? In the first clip, Lynch mentioned we got a really prominent player who's not getting paid yet because he's not allowed to. They're not crying about the fact that they can't pay Brock Purdy yet. And who knows? Maybe they won't pay him next year either. But in some way, I think this team has to look at 2024 like, what do we do to win the Super Bowl this year? And then we deal with 2025 after that. Now, we know that they never go that they're good enough planners that they never lose total sight of the future. They maneuver it very well. And as I said yesterday, there is some stuff in Debo's contract post June 1, 2025, where his dead cap is only $6 million. You could maybe then afford to pay Brandon Aiyuk like a number one receiver if you wanted to. Now, it'd get a little more dangerous because he'd be a free agent, which you could franchise, but you don't want it. The Niners don't do that. They're not going to do that. And you could then wait another year to pay Brock, right? You could play Brandon out on his fifth-year option. Then you could play Brock out on his fifth-year option. The difference between a quarterback and a receiver on the franchise tag is the quarterback franchise tag, the pain of it isn't the cash. It's that it all just hits your cap immediately. But they won't want to do that either. So that's where I'm at with Brandon right now. Those are my predictions with Aiyuk right now. And I think some of the frustration we saw at the end of the year is probably him understanding it. Now, you might think, well, all right, maybe Aiyuk then should take a little bit less, right? Take less than what receivers get. What's interesting right now is what top five money is for a receiver could change a lot very quickly here, right? Because CeeDee Lamb is not only does Aiyuk have his fifth-year option coming up, CeeDee Lamb's got his fifth year coming up. Justin Jefferson has his fifth year coming up. Jerry Jeudy has his fifth year coming up. And there's a lot of good receivers right behind them. There's a couple free agents. T. Higgins is out there. Michael Pittman's out there. So I think some of the floor of what these, top 15 receivers are making is about to come up, as it always does. And I think the ceiling's about to get a little bit higher too. So if you're Aiyuk and you want to be paid like a top five receiver, which why wouldn't he want to be paid like a top five receiver? Do you really want to take a team-friendly-ish deal now when, yeah, maybe you could go make 18, right, on a team-friendly deal, but you're about to make 14. This fifth-year option is going to pay him $14 million this year, which is almost twice what he's made all 4 years of his contract to this point combined, right? He's been making like $2 million a year, give or take. So he's got a lot of money coming to him. He's got a big increase coming to him. And, it might be enough of kind of a padding for him to hold off, let it play out, not take a deal that he doesn't think is fair to him, play on the fifth-year option, and then see what happens. I mean, hell, Mike McGlinchey got paid. But if you're looking at the Niners going, well, maybe they should trade him, then they also are very willing to play him out on the fifth-year option, right? Because either way, you lose the guy. So if they're willing to trade him, which they'll take calls, so there's a path there, then they're also willing to lose him after next year. But right now, they're still in control. And my guess is they exercise that control by keeping him around. That's my prediction. That's where we're at. We spent a week talking about what could he be paid? What could you get for him in a trade? I don't think what you get for him is good enough. That's where the receiver trade market is so it's a buyer's market because I can just get a guy in the draft. Let me just get up to 15. I can get a blue chip guy. I'll stay at 23 and I'll get a Brandon Aiyuk or a Justin Jefferson, right? It doesn't always work that way, but it's a buyer's market when it comes to receiver trades. So unless the guy is like Tyreek and that guy never hits the market and you're not getting that guy, even if you draw in the top five, you don't think. So I just don't see the Niners getting an offer that really makes it worth their while. If the Jets offered 10, a desperate Jets team. Sauce Gardner said again today, we need a veteran receiver. Sauce is out here tweeting like he's Micah Parsons on a podcast. Well, yeah, you offer the 10th, the Niners take that. They take it. But you're probably not, that is more, I said it yesterday, but I'll say it again. The 10th pick is more than what the Dolphins traded for Tyreek Hill. The 13th pick, the Raiders pick, that's more than what the Dolphins traded for Tyreek Hill when you look at the draft value. And as someone pointed out to me in the YouTube comments the other day, the Raiders could use 13 to go up and go get a quarterback. Try to get up to use that and other picks to try and get up. Maybe could they get, it's a long way to go to get to 3. Could they go get Jaden Daniels? But, okay, 20, you get 23. The Texans decide we just want to go all in. We're going to get Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Brandon Aiyuk. We're going to have this just a badass receiver group. It's 20. That's probably unlikely. I think it's a little irrational, a little too aggressive for Houston. But let's just say 23 and a third. You trading Brandon Aiyuk, your quarterback's best friend, when you're trying to win a Super Bowl for 23 and a third? I don't think you are. All right, you don't want to pay him $60 million, $65 million. Hell, $60 million might not be enough for Brandon. He's thinking Debo got 58 2 years ago. The cap's gone up. It will have gone up, maybe like $45 million since then. So I'm not taking 60. I want 68, right? Well, we're not going to give you 68. So what are we going to do? I think he's going to play in the fifth-year option. Let's get to some of your takes on that. Vic, why would he be inclined to stay here 5+ years when dude has been proving his worth every week, in and out, every week in and week out for the last 2 years, and the Niners aren't willing to guarantee him anything long-term? In the end, for most guys, it's not some loyalty play. It's just a money game. Now, he would know that the Niners don't want to franchise tag him, but he also would not have all the leverage because the Niners could franchise tag him. In the end, they might determine that he's a number one receiver for Brock Purdy and that they don't pay Brock next year, or Debo's gone, or both things happen. Debo's gone and they don't pay Brock. And then they give him a meaty contract extension, or Debo stays. They give him a contract extension, but the money doesn't hit for a couple more years, right? There's all these different ways that they might try to manipulate it, and they're very good at manipulating it. And as long as they have the leverage and provide him a lot of money, then it's not about loyalty for him. Okay, I'll take the money. I'll be your number one receiver. I'll catch 80 balls. I do think Ayuk's reception numbers, I think we're going to see them go up. He settled in the last couple of years to around 75. I think Brandon Aiyuk has a 90 catch year coming in the next 2 years. I think Brock's only going to get him the ball more. And as time goes on, Brandon's the youngest of the group of skill guys around him. People are going to leave. They're going to be gone. And I think Ayuk's physical prime is going to coincide with that happening here in the next 2 years, and Brock getting better. And I think he is going to have a big year. So Scott says, isn't it risky in that if you force him to play in the fifth-year option, then you either lose him next year or have to franchise him the same year you have to pay Purdy? Seems like a bad plan. You don't have to pay Purdy next year. You don't have to. You could play it out on his fifth-year option with him, or, as I suggested yesterday, get him on a quote-unquote friendly deal. Because unlike receivers, you might be a little more likely to tag quarterbacks. I don't want to talk out of both sides of my mouth, though, because I don't think they're not in the tagging business. But would Brock Purdy be more likely to take a team-friendly deal than Brandon Aiyuk is? I think yes. I know it's dangerous to say that because it's why would anybody ever do that? But, quarterback money is just so much bigger that maybe it's a little easier to convince a quarterback, hey, man, take 42 than it is to convince a receiver, take 16. Because at the end of the day, it's shit, man, it's 42. And I get it now, right? Brock doesn't get $14 million. Brandon's got, now it's year 5 for Brandon. For Brock, it'll be year 4. But Brandon's got $14 million coming to him this year. So he doesn't have to take a team-friendly deal because he's got $14 million coming to him this year. It's not 60, but it's not 2, right? Here's the other thing. I think all of this stuff involves risk. All of these options, there are a lot of not fun options. They're only not fun options, actually. When you end up with a lot of good players, you end up with difficult decisions too. Teams that have a bunch of shitty players don't have any hard decisions to make. Just like bad teams don't have role players, bad teams don't have tough decisions. They have easy decisions. Don't pay them. Their decisions are should we fire a bunch of people? But as long as their owners got cash, they can fire coaches and trade away players and alienate fan bases. They don't have hard decisions. You know, I go back to the movie. There's a line I love quoting from the movie Argo. They're trying to get some hostages out of enemy territory. And the CIA guys, it's Ben Affleck and Breaking Bad guy. And they go to their boss, the CIA, and they've got this stupid plan. And he's like, is this the best option we have? And the answer he gets back is, sir, of all of our bad options, this is by far the best. And, you know, when you got expensive players and players you value and personalities you don't want to offend and people that you've already paid in a championship to try to win, know this, it could be harder. If your quarterback was making $50 million right now, this would be even worse. So this is it. And they've been navigating this very well over the years. They've made several decisions because you have to make decisions. You don't get to not make a decision. Having him play on a fifth-year option is a decision. That's not a decision. Everything you do or don't do is a decision. Even inaction is a decision. So don't view a fifth-year option here for Aiyuk as inaction. Remember how long it took him to pick up the fifth-year option last year? This weird that was? Were they trying to trade him then? That's what the suspicion is, right? But that's right. This is actually where I think some of the frustration comes from. Dale says, isn't it more likely they don't pay anyone this year and instead splash in free agency or maybe O-line and then trade Debo or Kittle next year? Still need to restructure some people in order to add people in free agency. So they can do that. Keep Aiyuk on the $14 million. The irony is restructuring, extending Brandon now saves them money this year. So maybe they want to pay Brandon later to save money later, right? Like you pay Aiyuk now and you get his cap hit low now instead of $14 million. And you go, great, we got Aiyuk locked up. But then in 2026, his cap hits $31 million, $33 million. So you let him play on the fifth-year option. You restructure Trent and Debo now. You bite the bullet on Aiyuk's $14 million now. You extend him next year. Then the next year, you pay your quarterback. And the year you're paying your quarterback, Aiyuk's number isn't hitting $31 million, right? You're paying Brock in 2026. You just extended Aiyuk in 2025. You are staggering all these big cap hits down further. So, I think maybe that's the way they're looking at it. Jordan says you can't pay two wide receivers $50 million with this scheme. I mean, you can. You can't do that and pay a quarterback $45 million. And I don't think it'll probably not end up happening. But I also do, like I said, I think Brandon's going to end up catching more balls. And, let's be real about Deebo Samuel. Deebo's more than just a wideout. Deebo almost carried the ball 40 times this year. I mean, I know he was hurt, but how many carries did the backup running back Elijah Mitchell have this year? My guess is 17, but let's do a quick little check here. Rushing 49ers rushing attempts. Oh, I was way low. Is this 2024? Oh, 2023? God, my bad, Elijah. Elijah had 75 carries this year. Debo had 37. So Jordan Mason had more carries. Jordan Mason had 40. All right. Throw out that logic. I thought I had a good comeback to that one, but I didn't. All right, so give me your percentages. You can hit the comments. Lee says 2026, no Kittle, Trent, Debo, Juice. Well, yeah, I mean, you got to figure Trent, he hasn't said, but I don't think you can bank on Trent Williams being back in 2026. I think of those other three guys, definitely one has to be gone, right? Of this group, maybe you'd guess half of them, 2 of them are not on the team in 2026. But, I don't just say this because he's our guy, but I think Kyle Juszczyk's a lot harder to replace than people think. I mean, all these guys are hard to replace. But, they've been trying to find the next. I don't know if they've actually been trying to find the next Kittle. They clearly have not found the next Kittle for several years. What's next in the pipeline isn't even close. This last draft, it looked like maybe they were trying to do that. We'll see, but it's not trending. They've tried a couple times maybe to line up the next Juice, and it hasn't even been close. I mean, watch the league. Like, there's just even the Shanahan guys that have a fullback. I mean, half of them don't have anything close to Kyle Juszczyk. So, I think that guy, that individual, not that position, like in theory, that position, having a Swiss Army knife in that position is useful, but actually finding it, it's like, I think a lot of Niners guys, I think Debo is this way. I've used this analogy for Debo, and I think it applies to Kyle as well. After the Warriors hit a home run with Draymond Green, some of you might remember, there was several years of like, all right, this Denzel Valentine, he's the next Draymond. Everyone's trying to find the next Draymond. Like, guys, you're not finding the next Draymond. And that's why I thought all this stuff a year ago was so stupid. Do you remember what everyone was talking about this time last year? It was so dumb. So dumb. And it's going to come up again this year, and it's going to be so dumb again. Well, has Brock Purdy changed the way teams will draft? No. They're not going to suddenly start drafting 6'1" guys with medium arm talent. He's an outlier. They're going to keep drafting guys that they hope will become Josh Allen, and like 1 out of 10 of them will. But nothing's changing. Are they going to start drafting 7th round quarterbacks in the 4th round? I got news for you. They already do. Go look at the guys that get drafted in the 4th round to play quarterback. Kellen Mond. Actually, he's more talented than a 7th round guy. Tyler Wilson. I don't even know if Kellen was a 4th round pick. These guys are whiffing on quarterbacks left and right. And you think suddenly they're going to dial it in for 7th round talents in the 4th round? Not a chance. Truly, that's one of the stupidest conversations that we've had in draft football in my life. All right, is Brock Purdy going to change the way teams draft? Guys, quarterbacks are still going to get drafted in the 7th round. Those are the Brock Purdys. I don't know, man. This guy doesn't project like us. Brock is an exception to the rule. We're seeing it still. Most guys with his physical traits don't possess his mental aptitude, toughness, blah, 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 all that stuff. So you could try, but I promise you this, the team that zigs and starts taking 7th round talents, they think, in the 3rd round because of Brock Purdy is going to be a team missing on quarterbacks, which, is just like the rest of them. So whatever. Tyler just gave me $2 in a super chat to tell me I didn't read his super chat earlier. Tyler, thank you. Super chat. I heard Kyle in the past say that rookie wide receivers do one thing a day that makes him really mad and annoyed. I think Kyle knows how important Brandon Aiyuk is. I don't remember that quote. That's a great quote. It's 1,000% believable. I think the Niners would view defensive tackle as an easier plug and play position than receiver, because defensive tackle is Chris Kasarek's job. Wide receiver is Kyle's baby. And I don't think, Aiyuk was never a bad dude, but it was clear that Aiyuk, there was just a different standard when he came to the NFL, and he wasn't prepared for it. But he got up to speed really quick and turned out to be a stud really quick. So I think the Buckner experience and Kyle's own understanding of what he requires of receivers and how difficult it is for him sometimes with receivers make me believe that the Niners would not go rookie receiver this year in the 1st round to try and replace Brandon Aiyuk. I mean, they may draft another receiver again in a later round. I want them to, honestly. They need to. The Danny Gray thing isn't trending in the right direction. At this point, I don't think you can not draft a receiver that you like because you're like, we already got Ronnie Bell. I wouldn't do that. I'd add another receiver. You may lose two receivers. You may lose. I mean, you could make the case for why Debo, Aiyuk, or Jennings, two of those three guys won't be on the team in a year. So, yeah, draft another receiver. But I think this is a great quote because it shows that Kyle understands how hard it is to play receiver for him. He doesn't blame himself for it, but he understands how much is asked. And I really think it's not just about Kyle. I think it's about Purdy. Like, yeah, you feel good about Brock. Brock Purdy is, the biggest reason why the window's not closed on this franchise and why I'm optimistic about them, like, big picture moving forward, not just, I know some people have called it like the last dance year. Guys, if you've got your quarterback, if Brock comes back and takes another step of improvement, then it's no last dance if you've got your QB. That's not a last dance. That's the beginning, not the end. So, I think even with that said, though, you're still asking a lot of Brock coming into year 3, and it'd be a very dangerous thing to just turn Brandon Aiyuk into rookie receiver. And rookie receivers can have immediate impacts, but I think you ask a lot. You ask more of them. The irony is they get less balls, but you ask more of them in this offense, right? It's not 50-50. Hey, man, you're a really good, you're just a jump ball guy. You're big, you're fast, go balls. Cool. Just go run a bunch of deep routes and we're going to throw you the ball. No, you got to block. You got to be really precise in your routes, like really precise, because Brock throws with anticipation. And he needs to know where you're going to be and when you're going to be there in order for it to work. We saw that a few times down the stretch in the postseason. Somebody tried to freelance a little bit. It was a problem, right? Ray tried to freelance a little bit. It was a problem. So you're not just, that's the thing. It's like they could tell him, like, I don't know, man. Are you really Jamar Chase? No, you're not really Jamar Chase. But it's like, okay, then, all right, I dare you. Replace me. See how that goes for you. I think it's always difficult, but they're in a really, really unique spot. Daniel says, have we forgotten about Bill Walsh? He had no problem treating players who put themselves above the team. No, I don't think we've forgotten about Bill Walsh. I don't think Aiyuk is putting himself above the team here. It's the same thing. This is what Debo wanted. It's what Kittle wanted. It's what Trent Williams got because he was a free agent. I don't think he's putting himself above the team. I think he wants what he thinks he's worth. And this is just the constant, push and pull of professional sports. Now, if you acted like an idiot, especially, there were times when you just had to make tough decisions. That's why Walsh didn't get close to his players, too close to his players. Bosa did it as well, because he knew that there were going to be tough decisions. But very early in Bill Walsh's tenure, he had an offensive lineman going around. The player's name escapes me. He had an offensive lineman going around the locker room, creating a stink because he wasn't getting what he thought he deserved. He was being a bad teammate. Walsh sent him home, cleaned out his locker, said, don't come back. Sent a very strong message. That was very early in Bill's tenure. That's not what's happening here with Brandon Aiyuk. His teammates love the guy. He loves his teammates. Go watch his 90-second post-game. He could barely get through it. Not post-game, but locker room talk after the, exit interviews, basically, after the Super Bowl when they got back and were cleaning out their lockers. He's wearing sunglasses. He can barely get through 90 seconds of people asking him questions because he's breaking down. So that's not this guy. Calvin says Bose admitted he wasn't ready during the season because he held out. I thought that was, I don't know if that got the attention that it deserved. That was pretty telling. That was eye-opening. Here's a guy who they trust to be in fantastic shape, who is always going to be ready to roll. And he wasn't. And so if it happens with him, then it can definitely happen with Aiyuk, right? I mean, you would think. little different maybe with receiver, but still something to be aware of. Comment, Daniel Jones is making $40 million a year, which is the floor for quarterbacks. I think 50 is the easy mark for Brock, who's clearly way better than Jones. I think that's what he'll argue, or his agents will argue. I agree. A couple other things I wanted to hit with you people, while I got you here. I did think of Dre Greenlaw today. Thursday is trash day in my neighborhood, and I took the cans out. And anytime I come up my driveway, first few steps I like to sprint if you can. And I took 2 sprint steps coming up the driveway today, and I was like, oh no. That's exactly what happened to Dre Greenlaw. And he is in much better shape. Now, he had Achilles tendonitis, but I thought of Dre today. And I thought, God, can I not even do that anymore? Because if it can happen to the elite athlete, Dre Greenlaw, then it can definitely happen to your boy just taking out the trash. Yikes. Big news in the NFL world yesterday when a report out of Eagles site suggested that the Dom DeSandro absence actually did break the Eagles, but not in like some funny way, but because he actually keeps his head coach in line on the sidelines. Sirianni 2 tenths during that game. And the report was the real reason for the implosion was, this is Derek Gunn, that Big Dom controls Sirianni on the sidelines. I 100% believe that story. Now, I said, many of you are new here. Welcome. I said last year that they should consider, there's a few coaches I'm just out on from the jump. McCarthy, I said after the Cowboys' first game under him in 2020, they hired the wrong coach. Sirianni last year after the Super Bowl, I said it'd probably be, it would turn a lot of heads, but they should consider hiring one of their coordinators instead of hiring Sirianni. And the reason I said it at the time, this is not some hindsight thing. The reason I said it at the time was that he'd already been their offensive play caller and they'd taken play calling duties from him. They were going to lose their offensive coordinator and their defensive coordinator. They just paid their quarterback. When you pay your quarterback, nobody more important than his play caller. And if you're going to keep the development of your quarterback going, you got to keep the play caller around. Well, let the play caller go, Shane Steichen. They had to replace both coordinators the year later. I think I was right. And I think I'll be right again. They probably should hire one of their coordinators as their head coach in 2025. Because here's the thing. If it goes as designed and Jalen Hurts is good again because Kellen Moore helps him, what's going to happen? Somebody's going to hire Kellen Moore. So the Eagles are just in this perpetual little, what's the word I'm looking for? They're in this perpetual little weather system right now where they're going to have a sun and then a storm. Sun and then a storm. Good offensive coordinator. It's sunny. He leaves. Storm. They're going to do this again next year. And the problem is with him as a head coach, okay, he's not your play caller. He's not the steadying force, the disciplined visionary that Mike Tomlin or John Harbaugh are. I'm not sure what he does other than put a target on your back. It's weird. I got to tell you guys, yesterday I recommended I said, I'm so excited. I'm going to upgrade to the iOS 17 because the Apple Sports app is here. I've been waiting for it. I hate every sports app out there. Nobody does on their sports app exactly what I want. Nobody puts what I want, where I want it, when I want it. It's annoying. I can't wait to download the Apple Sports app. So I upgraded to iOS 17, which definitely accelerates the end of this phone, and downloaded the app. And I got to tell you, work in progress. I still think it's going to look really slick. I mean, it does look slick. Doesn't have NFL on it yet. Gives you lines. Doesn't have TV. I need to know where these games, how to watch these games. Doesn't have those. Doesn't really have player stats on it at all. Doesn't give me like team schedules, which is suboptimal, as the internet likes to say. But I do think it's an indication that Apple's going to continue to try to get into live sports. They've got the MLS. They tried to get the Pac-12. I'm deep in the ecosystem. I use the Apple TV, not Apple TV Plus, which I also have, but like the Apple TV hardware for my televisions. I think it's great. I love it. And I think, the layout of this thing shows it's going to be better than most of the other apps. Not ready yet, but I do think it's going to be better. And I think what they're setting up is all the live sports stuff. Like right now, I'm watching a show. Let's say there's a good basketball game on, something crazy's happening. The Apple TV puts up into the corner like Oklahoma State, Kansas coming down to the wire. Click it, watch it. So it's a good little product. These guys, they win. Apple wins at stuff, and I think they'll win at this one. The other thing, did I put this up here? Where did this go? I saw a clip yesterday. Shohei Ohtani talking on the Dodgers social feed, and I know some Angels fans were like, the media will want you to know that Shohei Ohtani has talked before. I hadn't seen it. News to me. Anyway, prizepicks.com/ham50. I went Shohei less than 38.5 homers just to have something to root for against the Dodgers this year. Just for that. Yeah. Comment. Let me get to this one because it gives me a chance to be a self-promoter, even though I don't think you guys can necessarily help me with this, which is fine. Eric asked, going to be calling any Big 12 games this year? I don't know. Be cool. I called a Big 12 football game last year. It was Texas Tech UCF. Some of you may not know that I do this stuff, but here it is.
Again looking, pointing. He's got time. He lost it for the tight end, and Tharp's got it. Touchdown, Red Raiders.
That was fun. I like Big 12 country. I love going to Lubbock. I really like going to Lubbock. Eric, I don't know what your Big 12 home is, but I love Lubbock. Salt Lake City, I like. That's a Big 12 town. The Arizonas, those are Big 12 towns. Boulder, I like. That's a Big 12 town. Jose asked, does Greg Papa ever give you any game calling tips? I haven't gotten any tips from Pop in a while, but I will say when I ask, he's always very thoughtful. He's listened and given me feedback before, which I appreciate very much. It means a lot coming from him. Yeah, he doesn't throw around compliments. So when he does, I'm into it. All right. That's that for this. Some Brandon Aiyuk and some other stuff. Thanks for being here. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. And I think that's all I had for you today, at least for the moment. More coming up soon. But talk to y'all later. Bye.